delay. Arch, if you can say something so we can verify if the sound is good.
I can say something.
Yes, it's working. Thank you for joining.
A small miracle has been made today.
So, recently there have been a lot of video games that have been announced. E3 came up and went, and then we also have the State of Let's Play. Any games that you're interested in?
They announced video games at E3 this year?
Surprisingly, yes.
Which?
They took like 95% to announce politics, but the other 5% was about video games.
What video games?
Oh, shit. Do you want us to go through all of them? The ones that I like?
Are there many?
Yes, there's the people who made Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. They're making a Rogue Trader video game.
So the masochistic, abusive, sadist cocksuckers that made some of the most abusive fucking role-playing game experiences in history are going into 40k. Beneficial.
Owlcat Games is not that bad. I think Wrath of the Righteous was actually a really good RPG. It was very faithful to the original writings.
It was an excellent RPG, made by a bunch of mean-spirited people who were bullied frequently as children, and now they take their suffering out on others.
Well, are you going to suffer when we watch the trailer for Pathfinder?
Or Pathfinder?
Yes. No, not Pathfinder. Rogue Trader.
Could it be?
Yeah.
No, like I did like their path. I did like Kingmaker. I did like Wrath of the Righteous. I think they'll do a pretty damn good job with it.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be pain to play, as all of their games do, because well, here's the thing. In PC gaming, you have the ability called the save and load button, which gives you abilities to make encounters a lot easier because you know what's going to happen.
True.
Which is why there are sadists about it. But even so, Jesus Christ. Like the Playful Darkness, you don't make an enemy like the Playful Darkness unless you have been bullied quite severely as a child for a very long time. You just don't. Like, it's psychologically proven.
But for the chat, are you excited about the prospect of a Rogue Trader game finally coming out or not?
We'll see about that. On the one hand, the guys making it, they do have a history of balancing out their own opinions in the game to the point where I don't find it particularly annoying. But I hate what GW is doing to their IP these days. I fucking hate the squats. The new squats look awful to me. I hate everything about them. So if they're gonna do more 40k, it's like there was a time when I'd be super excited about any 40k game. It's no longer those days.
But this is a Russian company, isn't it? I mean, they're not really into Californian culture.
There's a bit of a mix. In Wrath of the Righteous, for example, there are some definite nods towards good old-fashioned wokeism, probably introduced by Paizo, because Paizo is hard woke company. And then you also see some decidedly non-wokeist takes. Like there's a book, for example, that describes the idiocy of communism, where there's a guy summoning a demon, and he's writing in his diary, like, the demon will understand. I'm the oppressed working class. He's oppressed too. He's just a lower-ranking demon.
But that's actually funny, isn't it?
Yes, it is funny. Which is why I do think that they'll... out of all of the various companies out there, I have the most hope for them to do something well with Rogue Trader.
So you are going to keep an eye on this project?
Yes, I probably will pick it up, and then I'll play it, and I'll fucking hate every second of it for quite a while.
Okay, another game that I'm hyped about, Stalker. It's not called of Pripyat. I don't know how they named it, but I watched a little bit of the trailer, and it was just utter gorgeous.
Stalker, in the Russian sense or the Japanese sense?
Stalker 2 in the Russian sense. It's you get to play in an alternative history where Chernobyl exploded and there's like a new disaster, and you get to be in the zone.
Yes, I know it. I was just making sure. But yeah, I would say I'm looking forward to it in the same way that I am looking forward to Santa delivering me presents on Christmas. If it happens, I'll be really happy. But if it never arrives, I won't be surprised. Because that thing has been soon to be released now for a while.
So you think like it's going to be stuck in development hell?
It already is stuck in development hell, I think.
But now they're saying like
Oh.
they're confident with their product and it's going to come out next year.
Yeah, Bethesda has been confident about Starfield for the last 5 years as well.
Speaking of Starfield, there's another game. I forgot the name, Starfront or something like that. It's like Fallout in space. It looks really
Fallout
cool.
in space.
Yeah, like you go to various planets and you can build bases there. And there's one game when you're on the planet and it's like a FPS, and there's another game when you're in a spaceship and it's more like space-based combat.
Are you talking about Star Citizen?
Yeah, no, not Star Citizen. Damn it, I forgot the name of it. If chat can remind me, I think it's called Starfield.
Yeah, that's what. God damn it, V. Yes, Starfield is the Bethesda game that we were talking
Yes,
about.
it's a Bethesda game. Yes.
Yes, that was the game we were talking about.
Are you excited about it?
I mean, I didn't mind Fallout, so more Fallout isn't something I hate. But it's Bethesda. Like you can't know what it's gonna be until it's released. Like you have no frame of reference.
The chat is saying it looks lame. They're not very excited. The thing is, like, during the trailer, and this is what I don't get, right? Like, the trailer is where you should show your best foot forward, and the biome they showed was like a desert planet. Like, why not show a jungle planet or something like that?
Would that be interesting?
Yeah. I mean, it would definitely look more gorgeous than a completely desert planet.
Like to me, the main problem is just that it has that definitive Fallout feel to it. It looks very much so like Fallout in space.
It does. It so does.
It does. And it's like, okay, I mean, again, I don't necessarily mind Fallout in space. I enjoyed Fallout, but for years now, they've been talking this project up and how it's like, oh, the technology to make this didn't even exist when we came up with it. And then they just give us Fallout in space. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you could have done this earlier, honestly.
Yeah, you do have a point. I mean, it did give me the vibe of something that I've already played before. I suppose the ship battle, you know, like the when you go actually outside the planet and you're in your ship, that looks new and it looked gorgeous. But on the planet, it looked like shit, and that's because it looked like Fallout, which is a game that's 6 years old.
Well, that too. It's like the ship battles looks like World War II dogfights. You've got forward-facing guns. You don't have like weapon batteries or anything, and you fly around dogfighting things. Like, okay, again, I don't mind this, but like there's nothing revolutionary here. Like, there's nothing I look at and go like, oh my god, this will be incredible. It's like this will be another Bethesda video game. And
Well,
that's not necessarily bad. You know, I like Bethesda video games. Just
I guess
maybe a little bit
incredible is
more.
not what we get nowadays, except for one game. I think like I forgot the name of it, but you play as a cat in a post-apocalyptic world where the robots took over, and you're literally a cat and you jump into the environment and stuff. Are you aware of the game, or should I show you a trailer?
I've heard of it. Stray, I think it was called.
Stray, yeah, that's the name.
But beyond the name and the general concept, I don't know much about it.
You're literally a cat and you jump into the environment, and you do cat things. And I found that to be incredibly wholesome. The graphics are amazing. They look really great. But other than that, there's not much going for it. Like, it's not any type. I mean, it's completely original. You can't compare it to anything else. People are asking, what are your thoughts on the Fallout London mod? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't really kept up with the Fallout modding scene.
I seen it, and it looks a lot more great than any Fallout game that has come out. Like the graphics of it is just mind blowing. It's interesting what the mod team managed to do with the engine. So okay, let me think of a new game that's coming out. The Stargate, what is it called? There's a new Stargate game that's like tactical-based stealth game, like Commandos or like Desperados. Have you seen that
Stargate
one?
Commandos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have, no. I've seen some mention of a strategy game, but I don't know if that's the one then.
It's a stealth strategy game. You have seen Stargate, right?
No.
You haven't seen Stargate. Okay. Well then, I guess we can move on to another game. Street Fighter 6. I guess you're not interested in that. Resident Evil.
I know that kind of like Stargate, which is why I think Stargate is probably shit.
Stargate was actually a really good show. Like I'm rewatching it with my wife.
It's
It's
probably overrated.
humanity discovering a piece of technology which creates a stable wormhole, allowing groups of people to pass. So you can just travel to another planets through a circle.
The
And
Stargate, even.
I mean, throughout the seasons, humanity gathers technology from other aliens and eventually builds their own starships and stuff. It's very modern take to Star Trek.
See, that just doesn't sound realistic. Like, the American president can't even stay on a bike. Can you expect him to build a starship?
No, but that was like 10 years ago, right? No, sorry, 20 or 30 years ago. It was in 1990s. So I guess like George W. Bush found a piece of technology allowing him to travel to other worlds.
If anything, that sounds worse. I remember Bush.
I don't know. I like the premise of the show, right? Like it's in modern times, and I think it was under Chania Mountain, and the Air Force actually allowed the people filming the show to have access to the mountain as well as military personnel, and they had a military advisor telling them like how things would actually be if that thing actually happened, like if they actually had a Stargate in the middle of the mountain and stuff. So it was a really good show.
I did hear that it was basically a very large-scale recruitment campaign for the Air Force.
It was under President Clinton actually.
Clinton, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's not so bad. And Clinton, taking everything into consideration, Clinton's just like, I'm going to sexually harass one aide. Okay, you know what? Fine, fair. It's not a problem.
He limited himself to one aide. Eh?
You know, you have a stressful job. You know, you need to molest the help a little bit. It's fine. Just don't touch children.
So anyway, what do you think about Resident Evil? Are you a fan?
Resident Evil is a video game.
Yes.
Yes.
And are you excited about the Resident Evil 4 remake?
God no, it's a horror game. Fucking hate horror games.
You hate them? I guess.
Why would you want to be afraid while playing a game? That's just perverse.
It raises your adrenaline. It makes your heart pumping. It's kind of interesting.
It makes you feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable.
Didn't you make like a role-playing game called The Hunger or something like that?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. Was it a
But that's
horror
not me
RPG?
being uncomfortable. That's other people being uncomfortable.
I see. You're the
Other people being
director, so
uncomfortable.
like you like making other people uncomfortable. You just don't like being uncomfortable yourself.
Like,
So
like watching Let's Players play horror games, because if they're uncomfortable, I don't have a problem with that.
see, the thing with Resident Evil, the reason that I got interested is that it's a Japanese company which is starting to pander to a Western audience. They're basically removing lines from the game that are considered to be sexist jokes, and they say that a modern audience doesn't like those jokes.
That doesn't sound like a good thing, V.
It doesn't sound like a good thing, and it's Capcom. Do you think that Japan is going to start catering to the Western market?
I mean, they already have, to some extent.
You think?
I mean, Japan is currently engaged in its own little woke wave. They tried to ban advertisement of like lolly with lolly characters a little while ago, but that did get shut down by Kentra Muri, the Love Hina person.
It's fascinating that that the Japanese culture can resist all of these changes.
Well, it hasn't necessarily resisted all that many of them yet. For example, they did recently introduce a law that could send you to jail for I think 2 or 3 years for mean tweets. So
Like hate speech, or what are you talking about?
offensive tweets,
Hmm. That's
offensive social media messaging.
that's something that I didn't know. So, you reckon that they're eventually going to cave when it comes to anime and video games and Western products?
They might. I mean, they have. The thing is, like, they haven't really gotten to this part of the wokeist wave yet. Like, it's spreading out from America. It's finally reached Japan, and people over there are like, yeah. Like, they're like us in 2014, 16, where they're like, hey, yeah, maybe equality isn't so bad. Surely this is a good thing, right?
The thing with Japan is that due to China, they're very aware of communism. Like I seen even Japanese hentai games that dab on communism. I guess like the new generation is different, and they don't understand that promoting equality over liberty is bad.
There you go. People in Japan can now be sent to jail for up to 1 year for cyberbullying.
Cyberbullying, Jesus. It's
Yes,
interesting. Like
cyberbullying.
China doesn't have the concept of cyberbullying. Like China cares about the collectives. They don't care
Yes, but
about
in
the individual.
China, you can also be sent to fucking the Stalag for spending too much time on the internet. So
Yeah, true. But like, well, what I noticed is like China doesn't focus on like individuals being bullied. They only care about collectives. But anyway, right. Let's see what other games. Surprisingly, there was no Total Warhammer announcement because I thought they would announce that thing where you can unite all of the Total Warhammers in one campaign.
Mortal Empires, well, that's entered into beta now recently.
Hmm. Do they need a beta for that? Like I thought it's easy to just plug them all together.
Well, it might be easy if you know what you were doing, but Creative Assembly hasn't known what they've been doing for a very long time, so
The thing that really
they need a
annoys
beta.
the thing that really annoys me about it is that when they created the China faction, like from what I understand, there is a lore about what's it called, the Chinese group.
Uh, Cathay or whatever.
Yeah. Like they're mentioned in the lore, but Creative Assembly actually created the entire faction, and it's a faction that's not grimdark at all. Like it is the only, I guess, like pure good faction in the entire Total Warhammer universe. I mean, they're a faction that's being guided by two immortal benevolent dragons. How did you feel about that?
Well, it's Creative Assembly continuing to ruin whatever they can. CA has been a very woke corporation for a very long time, and they don't seem to have any intention to not be that.
I mean, if I was to make a Chinese equivalent of Total War, I would have made it so that they're focused on the corruption between various. I can't say like Chinese oligarch, but like Chinese noblemen. You know, you go to history and you look at the history of China. Like besides World War I and World War II, some of the bloodiest skirmishes and civil wars in human history has happened in China, and you can take a big part of that. Like you get to play as the Cathay, and you have to unite all of the factions. Like the various nobles are being plotting against you and stuff. Wouldn't that be more interesting?
These are things you could do, but you would like to sell your video game in China.
Hmm. I think that like the Chinese government would allow it. I don't think they're that censorious.
I think they are that censorious.
Really? Like
Oh,
if you go
yes.
to Chinese ancient history and you adapt something from there, you think they would censor that?
Yes, because they don't recognize that as their history.
Hmm. That's interesting. So any other video games that you've been interested in? If not, we're going to move to real life events.
Video games. Do they still make those?
Apparently, for mobile, especially like Diablo Immortal. Apparently, it managed to make $23 million in the first week.
It did, showing that there's a lot of sheeps on the mobile market.
I
Though to
think.
be fair, it made 24 million in the first like week or something.
Hmm.
Diablo 3 made like 100 million in the first day. So
Yeah, but those are box sales, not microtransactions. And Diablo 3 costed more to produce than a mobile game.
probably yes.
It's also the fact that they're not going after fish, they're going after whales. Like most people aren't going to pay for microtransactions, but it's enough for a couple. Like Senator Ted Cruz just made a video today talking about how he likes spending actual money on video games because he can get all the items in one day that takes months to grind.
Senator Ted Cruz is a weirdo.
I would say so, but it's still interesting. Okay. So, no other game that you've been excited about.
Not at the top of my head. I take games today very as they come. If something arrives, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll play that thing.
What about Diablo 4?
God, no.
Mm. Watched in for $10. Art, you are sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. I played as well, but can't talk about sheep in the mobile market.
Well, that's the difference. I'm sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. There's a slight difference between like I pay Raid Shadow Legends or being paid by Shadow Legends.
Okay, so real life events. I have watched your analysis on the Russian-Ukraine conflict since the beginning, and I found it hilarious that you're like, this is the strategy that Ukraine needs to do to win. And then I'm watching the events and Ukraine does that strategy that you actually said. And then you make another video saying, this is the strategy that Russia should make if I was a Russian general. And then I watched the video and that's literally what Russia does. Do you have any insider information, like any insider knowledge? Like, how do you manage to predict this shit so accurately?
Just looking at what they should be doing. I was actually surprised that the Russians were willing to withdraw so easily from Kiev, because I would have figured that Putin... Because, you know, you get a lot of stuff in the Western media about how Putin's mad, he's got fucking brain tumors, he's got every disease known to man in the modern age, etc. You'd think he'd be crazy, but he ordered the retreat timely. They pulled back. The Ukrainians were denied a major victory, capturing God only knows how many Soviet soldiers. Close enough, Soviet soldiers.
Soviet soldiers.
Close enough.
But like, isn't that what the West did with Hitler as well? It's like, oh, he's insane. He's a madman. He is. Isn't that like a tactic during war? And they did that in Syria as well with Bashar al-Assad to like basically like every person that you're at war with, paint them as crazy, insane, completely irrational.
Well, yeah, it works, and it's also a good way to explain what's happening to the average layman, because you paint an incredibly one-sided picture. Like Ukraine is the good guy. Ukraine has never done anything wrong. Is led by an actual, literal, living saint, etc., etc. And then you're like, but why is Putin attacking them if they're also very, very nice? Well, he's clearly crazy. Okay,
it is war propaganda, right?
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides are engaged in a great deal of propaganda.
Yeah, it's like the fog of war. Like that's not a video game strategy. That's an actual thing that happens in real life.
And in this particular campaign, poor little Vladimir Putin has just not done as good a job as Zelensky. Zelensky has done a very good job.
When it comes to the PR campaign, Zelensky is, I believe, a 10 out of 10.
He has barely set a foot wrong in this entire thing. He has done an amazing job.
I seen him like surrounded by $2,000 suits, and he was just wearing a shirt, and all eyes were upon him. I was like, my fucking god, that's just such a brilliant PR campaign. That's just.
I believe, in fact, you saw that on my Twitter account.
So like, how do you manage to know exactly what the generals are going to do? Because again, like, you just didn't predict what the Russians were going to do. You predicted what the Ukrainians are going to do.
Just look at the situation and then try and think what they need to do. Not rocket science.
It is rocket science for me. Like I'm looking at it and I'm like, how the fuck do you predict it so accurately? Because I mean, it's not just your assessment of the situation, but in order to do that, you collect the data properly, and then you also explain exactly what needs to be done in that situation.
V is surprised that this is the thing. No. It's not that difficult. If anything, the thing that was most difficult to explain to begin with was how Russia managed to fuck up so incredibly hard.
That was a little bit shocking, right? Because like in the beginning of this, everyone expected this would be over in at least 1 month, and
It
it's
should have been over very quickly, but
it's dragging
Russia
up.
wanted it differently.
Yeah, and like how do you think this is going to end, or is it too early to predict?
Well, like I still don't think Ukraine is in a winning position for the simple fact that Russia is sitting on 20% of their country, and there's very little Ukraine is going to be able to do about that, at the very least in the immediate future.
So when Zelensky says that he's going to take over Crimea, is that just bravado, or do you think like they have a chance?
Depends on just how screwed over the Russians are, I guess. Like they're currently doing a counteroffensive towards Kharkiv, I believe, which is doing all right, but it's not doing amazingly. Not doing particularly well. It certainly isn't doing well enough to threaten a major envelopment or anything like that. The thing is, the war has turned into an enormous fucking grind for both parties, with neither side being able to really get anything major on the board. So probably they're going to keep fighting for a while, and it's going to turn into another Syrian civil war, which is still ongoing. And in 20, 30 years, we'll see a news message going like, the war in Ukraine is over. Like, holy shit. That was a war in Ukraine?
I mean, the thing that I'm really shocked about it is that it's still going up till this day, as you mentioned, and there doesn't seem to be any decisive victor. Do you think that Russia will be content with just the Donbass area and probably sue for peace?
Content? Probably not. Like, Putin wanted a lot more, but like, this war is getting really expensive for Russia now. Like, it's dragging on well beyond where it should have ended, and Russia is becoming a straight up laughing stock internationally. Like Russia's put on all the airs. You know, they're a superpower. They're a threat to the West. They're a major power. They're trying to recreate the Soviet Union, etc. Then they attack Ukraine, a tiny little no-name neighbor, and they can't win. That's a problem.
That is true, but they haven't used nukes. And you know, when you say internationally, does China also think that Russia is an embarrassment?
Yes. China is not very happy with what's currently going on, because you can tell that in their stance towards Russia. Because before the war began, they officially said, "Oh, we're not concerned with any of this. This isn't our matter." And then they sent out communiques to all of their news organizations saying, like, "Yeah, we're only going to print the Russian point of view," which, to be fair, is exactly the same that we do here in the West, mind you, as well.
Yeah. Which is something that I don't agree
no.
with, by the way. Like, I don't like just flat out censorship. I think you can counter disinformation with good information. I don't think you should just ban the source.
Yes.
OrmiX says, hello from Lithuania. What do you about our government shutting down Russia's access to Kaliningrad?
I think if I were you, I'd build a very large hole in my fucking backyard right about now.
Jesus.
Like, no joke. Like, Russia needs that shit. And this is a tiny little fuck off country trying to be like, very important. Meh. Like, that's a dangerous game.
Wasn't that with Kosovo as well? Like, the Russian space drone is there. And also they have the biggest uranium mines in the sector, so Russia, like, really needed that. And when Kosovo had the rebellion going on, I thought, like, they're not going to invade Ukraine now because, like, they need to focus on Kosovo.
It is, and it's just another prestige hit too. Now, I think probably the country can get away with a lot because it is a NATO member, and Russia isn't going to do anything outright. But Russia has the ability to do sanctions too, and a lot of these smaller Balkan nations. What's the term for like Lithuania, Estonia, etc.?
I don't know.
Like,
Let me,
there's a term for that particular area, but
the Interimario.
into Mario.
That's how we Romanian call it. We call Russia the Eastern problem. We call Germany the Western problem, and everything else in between is the Interimario.
The middle problem, maybe.
Yes. No, it's not like the middle problem. It's like something that can or can't be a problem. It's like an in between. The Baltic nations, I think you want to say.
Baltic, yes, Baltic nations. It's like, again, Russia is really desperate to find some way to flex their muscles right now. You know, they need to demonstrate to not just like the world, but to themselves almost that they've still got balls. It's very important for Putin to be able to be the strong leader. That's one of the things. Like he's literally built his entire career on being the strong man leader, you know, the big boy. And he's not looking so big right now. And if bullying a little Baltic nation might give him a PR win, I don't see any particular reason why he wouldn't decide to do that.
I think a lot of people forget that Russia still has nukes, and that's why it's considered a superpower, because I think it's like the world's second country when it comes to having nukes, and they haven't used any nukes as of yet. Although, like, how many nukes are still operational versus how many nukes are outdated, if they have the delivery system to actually give them, and so on and so forth, that's still up to question.
Yes, the state of Russia's nuclear arsenal is a big question. How much of it is actually functional, how much of it is just rotting in silos all over the place.
It is an interesting thing. Like before World War II, Russia was also considered as a pushover, and it was like an agrarian country that can't even take over Finland. And then when push came to shove, Russia was actually, I would actually say, the golden star of World War II.
Well, in large part, that was because Stalin threw his shit at Russia, and not Russia, Finland, and it was then revealed just how dismal the state of the Russian army was. And so he instituted a large-scale series of reforms to try and fix it up, which backfired a little bit here and there. You know, he shot half of his generals, etc.
The purge.
But it was done just in time for the Germans to show up, so that was lucky.
Oh, so like if the Germans showed up a little bit earlier,
It might have been a problem.
might have been a problem. Yeah. Man, I so missed the campaign that you did with Vampire the Masquerade. I understand why you had to stop it because, well, people were complaining, especially at YouTube. But it was such a fucking awesome campaign.
It is so sad that Germany is not allowed to exist like the happy little nation that it is. They just wanted more clay. That was all.
I got a super chat, which is let me see if I can find it. If I manage to get it in time. All right. Any news on the VTuber D&D campaign with Arch? So yeah, like I'm planning a campaign with VTubers. Some of them are going to be famous corpo VTubers. Other you probably all know. And I want Arch as the DM, but he's already involved in a different campaign right now. So he said that maybe during autumn, when he takes a break from his current campaign.
Maybe. Big maybe.
Big maybe?
Depends.
If not, I can get the husbando from Aiden Paladin. Apparently, like he's a big guy who made Pathfinder. Like he was involved in the development of the Pathfinder tabletop game. But I want Arch. Arch, I need you. I have faith in you. You make good campaigns.
But VTubers are weird.
Why are they weird though?
Kinda.
I think
At least
they're
a
like,
little bit.
you know what? I have more respect for VTubers than e-girls because, especially the VTubers that I promote. Yeah, sure, like they hide their face behind the VTuber model, but they put on good content. They genuinely try to put out entertaining stuff, which is more than like booba.
That is true, but this is also a frighteningly low bar you're setting here.
Well, it's the times we live in, I guess. What is Arch's thought on Sisters of Battle being turned into Space Marines? What the fuck, is that a thing?
I hope not.
Are Sisters of Battle being turned into Space Marines, Arch?
I hope not.
I
So I can't really say on that matter.
I don't think they are, because I recently saw a post by Games Workshop saying that only men can be Space Marines, and this got a lot of people being upset on the internet.
Well, people are always upset on the internet, but
yeah, but like this more than often, you know, like they really were like legitimately like couldn't sleep at night because of it.
it did tickle a lot of pickles in a negative fashion. Because, well, the thing is, it's not like this came as a surprise or anything, because Space Marines have always been canonically men since the beginning of 40k.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those thin wedge issues where they go like, well, you see, they haven't explicitly stated it in the last like 10 years, so maybe.
I don't even get it. Like, if you read the lore of Warhammer 40k, right? Like, you have the Eldar, which have a lot of powerful women in it. The Tyranids, like they have the queens and shit like that. It's not like the and then you have like female inquisitors. It's not like the lore lacks female representation or anything.
But none of that matters. You know this. You know this. The actual state of the representation is not the point. It's power. Like, there's a thing that is only men. Therefore, they must have it.
Yeah, but like the normal people, you know, like the people who aren't interested in politics, like you would think they would speak out. And they would be like, well, hold on, this doesn't make any sense. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, just because, like, okay, there aren't any women that are Space Marines, there aren't any men that are Sisters of Battle either.
Well, probably because they don't really think about it and don't want to get involved. Like, this is one of the things that is a bit of a genuine problem right now, is that a lot of people are adapting the idea that the best way to do anything is to completely disengage from politics. And, well, in this case, the commies do have a point. Like, there's no standing still on a moving train when that moving train is literally coming straight towards you. Like, when the train is intent to crush you beneath its treads, which the commie train absolutely is, then just simply ignoring it and hope it'll go away is... yeah, I'm not sure it's a long-term strategy, honestly.
No, I agree. This is why I fully support you when you talk about gatekeeping.
It is the only way.
This is the way. I got
It's
some
the
super
only way.
chats regarding our previous conversation. Making the big assumptions that Russia won't use nukes unless we invade Russia. Should NATO intervene to push Russia out of Ukraine in order to restore peace and food supplies?
No. Simple. No.
I do agree with you with
NATO
no.
should not invade shit. Like, I hate the people who are like, we need a new fly zone, no fly zone, protect the Ukrainian civilians. No. They're not NATO members. Fuck them.
There's
a bit
also,
harsh.
Yeah, like there's also there's this poll which was done recently, and they asked Americans, it's like, do you want a no-fly zone over Ukraine? And they were like, yes. But at the same time, when they were asked, like, do you want NATO planes flying over Ukraine? They said no. And it shows just...
It's the question asked. It's like, hey, do you want a new no-fly zone with, no strings attached? It'll just magically happen. Most people will say, yeah, sure. But if you actually explain to them what this means, they're like,
Yes.
hold on, this means war with Russia. I don't want that.
Yes.
It's a bit unfortunate.
Brother of Doom says, I missed the vampire campaign too. Got into it just a few weeks ago before it ended. Well, I'm sorry for you, Brother of Doom. And for the Koala says, LOL, Arch said VTubers are weird.
They are. I mean, you can't deny that.
I don't know. I mean, Pipkin Pippa is like...
Pretty weird.
She is weird, yes. But like
Yes.
she's a good kind of weird, you know. Like she talks about 4chan and shit. And it's like...
That's still weird.
Moving on. So people are going no nukes, no nukes. Do you think like if nukes were used, like do people understand that there's two types of nukes? Like there's the tactical nuke and then there's the strategic nuke.
I'm not at all convinced that Russia won't use at least a tactical nuke, just one, as kind of a like so what move.
So
Because
what?
the thing is, if they fire one tactical nuke, NATO has already basically said that they're not going to do anything, and it would be an enormous power move for Russia, as Putin can then just stand up on stage and go like, "So Ukraine, now what?"
What do you think
just
they would? What do you think they would nuke? Would they nuke Odessa or Kiev?
Nah, it wouldn't be a civilian target. They would nuke military targets. It would literally just be a giant explosion in the middle of nowhere, so that Putin can, like the anteater meme, stand up on stage, hands open, like, so on, come on, what are you
No,
gonna do?
I thought just like I just wrapped my mind about how devastating a nuclear attack would be, right? I would rather be in the middle of the blast than outside of it, because like outside of it, you don't have any electricity, right? So you can't use your phones to call anyone. You would have the stores immediately run out of supplies, so you wouldn't be able to get any food. You wouldn't be able to get your money out of a credit card because, well, the ATMs would be down. There's no electricity. Your car wouldn't be working. If it's the middle of winter, you wouldn't be able to heat your house because there's no electricity. So if you're using like electrical thing to heat up your house or like an induction stove, it wouldn't be working. You're utterly fucked, like unbelievably fucked.
Yes, but luckily a tactical nuke isn't going to be quite as big and wumpy as that. Hopefully.
Still, like it has the EMP pulse. Like everything that's electric just fries, right?
Yeah, just in a tiny little area. A nice little EMP. It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fine. It's not a
but
big
like,
deal. Not a
like
big
all
deal.
of the supply chains, like they don't work anymore. Like you're
Supply chains don't work already.
No, but like it would be even worse. Like think about it, right? Like you're advised to stay indoors, but like if you stay indoors, there's other people going to the stores and like hoarding shit. And if you go out and you hoard shit, you get irradiated. Like what do you do?
Well, the only option then is to hope that you have a gun, and then you can go to your neighbor's house instead.
But your neighbor probably doesn't have anything either. Crazy Loon tested positive for Kuf. Well, I just hope that you're okay. Let's put it like that.
Don't worry, we all have the coof now.
The Kuf, yes. I mean, I think that most people don't realize that nukes are a thing. I mean, they know they're a thing, but like they don't believe that a nuclear weapon would ever be detonated in our lifetime in an actual war zone.
That's why it's a power move. Just a little one. Just a little tactical nuke. You dump it on what you think might be Ukrainian army positions, and then you just go like, so now what?
That would be interesting. Yeah, because like Russia could be like, okay, well, we can take your cities this way. How can you defend against it? Oh, you can't. What are you going to do?
What Putin should do is he should drop a little tactical nuke on something, presumably army, and then just go like, okay, hold on, listen here. We kept telling you that this wasn't a war. These were just special military operations, okay? But you kept calling it a war, so we decided to listen to you. That'd be a Chad move.
What do you think will happen when Putin steps down or dies of old age or whatever?
Or gets assassinated.
Yeah.
Oh, nothing, I think. I think Russia will go back to being a backwards place that nobody actually cares about for another 20, 30 years until the next guy in line goes, hey, Soviet Union, that's pretty cool, right?
Don't you think that they might actually get into a civil war without Putin?
I hope so.
You hope so. I mean, it's the second country with the number of nukes in the world. Like, would you really want a civil war?
But as we've seen with Ukraine, Slav on Slav violence is different. It's like black on black violence. It's a problem, but nobody really talks about it.
I mean, all it takes is for like one crazy guy to get in charge of the nuke arsenal and be like, okay, well, we're going to nuke the other side. And the other side goes like, okay, well, we're going to nuke you. And you have,
but again, If this is just a circle of Slavs nuking one another, like, do we really have a problem?
Mm. Well, I do because
Or
I'm
he's
next
just
to
thinking
them.
to
So
himself, like, hold on,
I mean,
I'm
I'm
thinking
next
this
to
is
their
a
border, so I would
pretty
care.
good
Yes.
idea.
People in the chat are saying that you don't have a clue.
Plus, it would be funny to see Novgorod and Muscovy again.
I am lucky to know what that is, but I don't think my chat knows what that is.
Well, then your chat is poorer for it.
I think the international community would do, actually, all jokes aside, because you have the like there would be international involvement. Let's put it at that.
They wouldn't do a damned fucking thing.
No, I think if there was civil war in Russia, like there would be people taking sides.
Oh, civil war in Russia, sure. We'd point and laugh and we'd send some aid here and there. And we'd give each other them parties we want to win guns, like we've always done.
Doesn't China have a couple of disputed territories as well?
Well, Mongolia would very quickly turn into a Chinese province, it's true.
Brother Doom for 499 says, if you want to know what an atomic blast or a tactical nuke would be like, read the book Hiroshima. There's also someone else. Thank you for becoming a member, Kenanion. Now, regarding Hiroshima, do you know there was a Japanese guy that survived 3 nuclear explosions?
There you go. Nukes aren't all they're cracked up to be. Pretty pathetic, actually.
Like the first one, I think it was which was the first, like Hiroshima or Nagasaki? I forgot which.
I think it was Hiroshima first.
Yeah, so the guy was at Hiroshima when the first nuke blown up, right? And he didn't know what happened. Like he was all of a sudden like caught in the debris. He explains how he closed his eyes for the blinding flash of light, but even though his eyes were closed, he could see like the skeleton in his hand. And then apparently the guy lived at Nagasaki. So he was just commuting to Hiroshima, right?
And he goes home. Oh, shit,
He goes home, right? And he goes home just in time for the second one. Now, what's interesting about this particular gentleman, right? Because there's a lot of people who actually got both of the nukes and survived. But, like, this gentleman happened to be in the Pacific on a boat fishing when the third nuke exploded because, like, the Americans was tasting some shit. So he got, like, 3 nukes in his lifetime.
Well, he's a lucky man then for making out of all three.
He's a lucky man, yes.
The thing is, too, people overestimate what nukes can do a great deal as well. Like, yes, a nuke's a very big bomb, but even the biggest bomb we've got, like the Tsar bomb, like, if we drop that on Washington, we wouldn't have a Washington anymore, which,
Yeah.
come on, would this be bad? That's a problem. Would this be a negative?
It would, yes. For YouTube terms of service, it would be very bad, yes.
Okay. Or YouTube service. But the thing is, unless we all start dropping everything we've got, nukes aren't that bad. They're a very big bomb. Even the stuff like nuclear winter that people bring up. Nuclear winter is a theoretical phenomenon that people wrote out on napkins and were like, maybe there'll be ash in the atmosphere. But then people are like, hold on, but we've got volcanoes blowing up all the fucking time and we're not freezing to death yet.
That's true. But I don't think it's like the nuclear ash and the nuclear winter that people are worried about. It's like the radiation, which that definitely exists.
But even radiation, like, you need quite a lot of it. And it needs to be in a specific area, and it needs to be constant. Like, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, these are lived-in areas right now. Nobody really gives a shit. You would need a massive amount of radiation. You'd need a lot of bombs. Like, you're not going to get this from 1 or 2 tactical nukes.
Well, that is true. The EMP would kill millions of people. I mean, think about how your country would deal like if there's no electricity all of a sudden.
Like, to put it into perspective, one of the supposed Chinese plans for the invasion of Taiwan is literally detonating like 2 to 3 nukes in the atmosphere above Taiwan just for the EMP pulse alone. The nuclear fallout, they don't really care about. This would be a mild inconvenience, but we want Taiwan.
Yeah, but like the people in Taiwan would probably have their lives ruined if there's no electricity.
Yeah, but they'll get electricity again eventually.
The question for both V and Arch regarding Nuke Talk: are you Team Institute or Team Brotherhood of Steel?
Brotherhood of Steel, but only the proper variant, the East Coast variant.
I remember like the Institute wanted to figure out ways to put greenery back in the wasteland.
Yeah, but they also did horrible things to people.
Like what?
They're mean. I think they turned a dude into a tree for shits and giggles. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, but like the Brotherhood of Steel, if they saw you having high tech, they would just take it away from you or kill you.
Yeah, but if I got high tech, I either need to defend it or I guess I don't have it anymore.
And I think I'm Team Institute.
This is a First Amendment argument. If you have a weapon, somebody tries to take it from you, what do you do?
I don't know. I think I'm Team Institute. They seemed like more advanced and more capable than the Brotherhood of Steel, which were at this point a fanatic, zealous type of religion.
Which is why you need to go with the East Coast. They're better.
Oh, yeah, well, the East Coast was like a Bethesda thing. Like, let's make the heroes more heroic. I wouldn't even say they're fucking canon. Regarding Taiwan, weren't it like a Japanese island back in the day that the Chinese took over when they retreated from the communists?
I'm pretty sure the Japanese did have Taiwan at some point, yes, but it was given over or taken by the nationalist Chinese. That's their only, strong point now.
Hmm.
Since the rest of China is filthy, dirty, commie pig dog land.
And it's also interesting that Taiwan wasn't actually a democracy for a long while, was it? Like it was a dictatorship, kind of like a country operating during a state of war, more likely.
Oh, even now, their democracy is perhaps a heavy-handed word, shall we say?
Yeah, because I have a YouTuber that's Taiwanese, and she had her family there, and she told me that, well, it's not really a democracy like the West likes to put it, and if you're caught reading any type of communist literature, they throw you in a prison. And there's people thrown in prison even though they don't read communist literature, but they're like accused of doing so. So anyone that's inconvenient to the government gets punished.
Again, it's a nation living on the brink of constant Chinese bandit invasion. It's unlikely to be a paragon of freedom.
That is correct. Okay, moving on to another topic. And yes, it is salty, Ian. What about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter? What do you make of that?
I think he's planning to back out on it. All of the talk about bots and stuff, it's like maybe he's just trying to drive down the price. I hope he's trying to just drive down the price. But I don't know, like, is Twitter a good investment? I think Elon could make it into a good investment. Is it worth that much money? Would it be a good thing for us? God, yes.
I mean, today the Twitter board unanimously agreed with the deal of Elon Musk. Like, they're okay with it.
Yes, but he has some demands of his own.
What are the demands? To show how much of Twitter is spam, I believe, is one of them.
Bots and shit, yes.
The thing is that, did you see the interview with Elon Musk and the employees?
No, I did not.
So it went kind of like this. Like, the employees were like, here at Twitter, we are committed of inclusion and buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. Like, how do you plan to buzzword, buzzword? And Elon Musk was like, well, I want to give free speech because that's going to drive more people to the platform. So that's going to be more inclusive. And if you want to get promoted in the company, you have to show that you have merit. And we're going to promote people based on merit. I would love to see the faces of the Twitter employees in that conversation. Like, I would have paid the paparazzi to just take a snapshot of them.
Well, the thing is that a lot of them probably don't understand what's going on either. I mean, a lot of these people are tech company bubble people who have been raised on buzzwords, as you say.
Yeah.
And now there's a person sitting there. He's got all the power. He's got all the money in the fucking world. He's going to be your boss, regardless of what you fucking whinge and whine about. And he simply tells you, like, yeah, but free speech is way more inclusive than your fucking Stasi bullshit. And they can't really do anything about that. Because you got to remember too, most of these activists are not the intelligentsia of the online world. They don't have the spin themselves into a pretzel argument for why free speech is actually really bad for you. You see, they just repeat the buzzword.
Yeah.
And what's the argument against free speech? Like, I want to give people free speech because it'll be profitable. Like, that's not very inclusive, isn't it?
I mean,
All they can really come up with is it'll silence marginalized people. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's the internet, right? Like, even if you're a marginalized person, like, let's say what they consider like a black woman or whatever, on the internet you're equal to whatever other category you can think of, because you got a keyboard, and you got a computer screen, and that's what the other guy got. Like, it's not that there's no inequality on the internet. It's
Well, the thing is, it's the oldest the internet tits or GTFO argument.
yes.
Where everyone is just going to have a conversation and that's it. And if you then come on, go like, "I'm a woman," okay, well, tits or GTFO.
Yeah, like basically, either you demean yourself, because like the thing was like a lot of people don't get the tits or GTFO thing, right? But it's like in real life, women have power over men. So when they went online, it's like, yeah, it's like, I'm a woman, you know, why don't you respect me? Because I'm a woman, you need to do this and that because I'm a woman. Then people go like, tits or GTFO. In other words, like, either you demean yourself and you show tits, or the option of getting the fuck out is always available.
Yeah, because the argument of tits or GTFO isn't sexist. It's okay, but we were having a conversation as equals, and now you're trying to bring in your power structure into this. You're going like, I'm a woman. Yeah. Treat me specially. Why?
Yeah, like there's no special treatment. Like on the internet, everyone was anonymous in the beginning, at least. And if you wanted to break the anonymity, and you're like, well, you need to treat me differently because I'm a woman, right? You're a man. You're supposed to like women. You're supposed to try to impress women. You're supposed to try to do this for women, right? And
yes, because that is the only reason why you would bring this up. Like, I'm a woman, okay? Why are you bringing this up? Well, because I'd like to have some privileges, please.
Especially in World of Warcraft guilds, this was very powerful. Like, every guild master would have like a female guild officer, and she would get a lot of shit and privileges given to her just because of, you know, like, she's the girl in the guild.
I remember the early days of World of Warcraft and the guild master's girlfriend. Yes, that was certainly something.
The guild master's girlfriend. I love how you phrased it.
And it's like, well, you know you can't really do anything with this person. Why? Well, GM's girlfriend. Or the queen bee. I remember a couple of guilds I was in where there was one female, because, you know, there were no women on the internet back then. And then another female would show up, and you're like, well, this guild is collapsing.
That is so freaking true.
The queen bee cannot stomach competition.
I remember there were like rules in guilds, like no women allowed, and people were like, "Why are you sexist?" And it's like, look, it's not that we have anything against women coming here; it's that we do not believe that the men in our guild can behave themselves if a woman comes in.
No, this isn't a sexism problem. This is a protecting ourselves problem. Okay, I'm sorry.
By the way, I noticed that recently you talked about Star Trek New Worlds, so you subjected yourself to the pain and horror of watching that.
No, Star Trek New Worlds is pretty good. No, what are you on about?
Yeah, like how would you compare Star Trek New Worlds to Star Trek Discovery and Picard?
Well, Star Trek Discovery is clearly the best Star Trek out there, obviously, because it has a strong female black woman as a leader, and many other wonderful things.
And she has a male name. It's Michael Burnham, yeah.
Yes, and she's Spock's sister, because, you know, they had to fucking really hammer that shit in there. Like, don't you know, I'm Spock's sister. Yeah.
But how is Star Trek New Worlds compared to that?
It's good.
Really? So you'd say I should watch it?
Yes, it has its own issues as well, as all modern entertainment does, but it's the most Trekky Star Trek that's been around in a very long time. Like, it's far more Star Trek than Picard is, for example.
Would you say it's better than the Orville?
I haven't seen the latest season of the Orville, so I can't comment on that. But the earlier, I would put them on equal footing, probably, with the earliest couple of seasons. Partially also because Orville, in my opinion, has a problem that it doesn't take itself seriously enough. It leans really heavily into this whole rare parody of Star Trek thing, and honestly, it could do Star Trek better than Star Trek did. Especially at the time. Like, the Orville is better Star Trek than STD ever was. And so seeing them be like, but we're just a parody, it's like you could be much more than what you are.
So the thing is, I actually watched the last season of the Orville. I haven't seen New Worlds though. But the last season of the Orville, like, it had some mind-blowing graphics, which, I mean, compared to the previous seasons, I would say like the new ones are really better. But the graphics like had a color palette that emphasized on optimism and the whole thing that Star Trek is supposed to be. Like, when I watched the new season of the Orville, like, I wanted to be in that universe. I was like, okay, they are very technologically advanced. They're like a utopia, and I wanted to be part of that, which is kind of what Star Trek used to be back in the day when you watched Star Trek. And not only that, like, the themes that they were discussing and the things, it seemed that they're moving away from what you said, where it's just like a parody of Star Trek, and they were going into their own universe, and they were trying to create their own stories.
Yes, that would be very beneficial, because I think the Orville was actually a very strong show, and it would be very good for the Orville if it could be the Orville. Like, I think that would be very good for it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly recommend you watch the Orville, and I'll watch the New Worlds, because I definitely think like they're moving in the right direction.
There has been some better, like, I do believe we are winning the cultural war. Like, I've been saying that for years, and I still think it's true. Because you are seeing more and more companies slowly begin to adopt our brand of view again. You're seeing more and more TV shows. Like, to me, Strange New Worlds is the perfect example of this, because it is very clear that this is a company who's made Picard, who's made fucking STD, and they're like, wow, this shit bombs. Like, nobody likes us. Why? Like, maybe we should just remake Star Trek. And that is very much so what Strange New Worlds is. A lot of people are making the meme that Strange New Worlds boldly goes where every other Star Trek show ever has gone, and that is entirely true. And I'm fine with that. I am more than happy to just see Star Trek again.
Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing one of your videos where a Strange New Worlds episode was a ripoff of 30K, where you have to choose one kid between a civilization, and they actually burned a kid alive in order to preserve a civilization.
Gotta fry the child. And hey, I am all for frying children most of the time.
So, like, what was the plot? It's like a civilization can't survive unless they sacrifice one child into the volcano every couple of years or so.
Yeah, the civilization is built on magic, and that magic makes their civilization float magically above the ground, above the literal fucking volcanoes beneath them. And if they don't put a child in the golden throne every few years to fry him in his own fat, then their entire civilization just falls into the lava. It is one of the most contrived and stupid-ass plot points I think I've ever seen, frankly. But the point is, it makes a very simple... It makes the moral argument, right? What would you sacrifice for blah, 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 blah.
Can't you find like a child with leukemia then? Like, can't you find a child that's going to be terminally ill anyway? So...
No, because you have to give the child lots of implants and shit so as they're compatible with the Golden Throne.
Ah,
like it has to be a healthy child.
It has to be a healthy child, I see.
Yep. And it's not a very complex moral question at all. It's in fact an incredibly simple moral question. Okay, if your choice is the eradication of civilization in its entirety or one child, toss that little fucker on the barbecue. I don't care.
I think like a lot of people are distant to the choice, but if it happened in real life, you know, especially what we've seen during COVID and shit, like most people will be like, yeah, just toss the child.
No, again, like anyone who gives you a different answer than toss the child on the barbecue is not honest. Like, okay, so you would rather see the destruction of the entirety of civilization than kill a child. Like, you're
I guess
not.
like the question would be
You're
like,
lying.
what if it was your child? Then it becomes personal.
Well, that's another thing that the show did try to answer because the child's father does try to save his child.
Yeah, because that's different, right? Like if it's your
Yes.
child, you're like, well, I just want to live the country. I don't want to be here.
Exactly, and that also introduces the hypocrisy of all of this. Because this guy was entirely fine with frying children up until it was his kid, and suddenly it's like, well, this is horrible. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like necessarily hypocrisy. I think it's like the human emotion, like you care about your inner circle before you care about the outer circle.
Well, yeah, but that is hypocrisy. Like, hypocrisy is a very human emotion. Like, again, he's like, well, frying children, it's for the better, it's for the good of everyone. It's the commie thing too. Like, yeah, no, I need to have my students' debt forgiven. You need to pay taxes to do that. And then the tax man knocks on their door. So you owe like $100,000. Like, hold on, this is theft.
But like, okay, so how did they fix the dilemma?
They don't. Child fries.
Oh, yeah. The first, what is it in Star Trek? The first prerogative, where like they don't interfere in other cultures and stuff.
Well, no, they tried, because Pike was horny, and so he had sex with the empress of the people who fried children. And then he was really horrified at the fact that he, of course, had sex with the empress who fried children. And he tried to stop them, but they beat the shit out of him, and it's like, no, sorry, Piker, he can't do that.
I mean, well, if it's between like your entire civilization dying or just one person. The thing is, like, it's not more like from an ethical standpoint. Like most people will say, well, yeah, but like if you're in an individualistic society, right? It depends if you're a collectivist society or not. Like if you put the group above the benefit of the individual, then yeah. But like if you're like that child has human rights and blah blah blah, then most people would say no. But like if you're in an actual scenario where you know that your loved ones and yourself like were plugged into the volcano if you don't sacrifice the child, and most people would argue for the sacrifice.
And even in an individualist scenario, okay, so why is this child's individual rights more important than everyone else's individual rights? Like there is a point at which everyone's rights are expendable. This is why we have jails. Like your right is not to go to jail. Okay, well you stole that woman's purse, so fuck you.
Yeah, but the question is like, what did the child do to deserve it?
Well, he was born.
How did
he
they
was
select
born? He took advantage of all the benefits the society could give him, and well, too bad.
How did the child get selected, by the way?
Lottery, I think it is.
Yeah, I mean it's an old theme. I think I've seen it in the Twilight Zone. I think I've seen it in many other movies where it's the same concept, but it's usually presented in different ways. I think,
like this is not a complex moral question, really. Again, that was kind of what annoyed me about it, because this isn't hard, because you've placed the stakes too high. If the stakes are an entire civilization or a child, civilization wins out every single time. If you'd made the stakes a little lower, like say for example you've got a holy god emperor ruler, right, and he needs we'll call him Emperor Biden, and he needs the blood of a freshborn child every 5 years, or he'll die. Okay, now you've got a very different dilemma, because now there's just one person who's probably a really good leader and shit, but he's just one guy. And now you're sacrificing a lot of children for one guy. That's the
dilemma of the Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Like, you have the queen, Queen Belfry, which is an ancient queen, and, she's considered by all the avatar of the crusade and blah, blah, blah. But she needs this elixir in order to constantly stay alive. And the question is, like, does she deserve to stay alive? Huh. So, yeah. I think, like, the question of, like, if it's a zombie apocalypse and you're with a couple of survivors hiding in a basement and there's a baby that's crying, like, is mothering the baby ethical in that situation?
Yes.
That's a more moral dilemma than, like a civilization versus a child.
Yeah, but the thing is, even then, At the end of the day, these are ethical, they're moral dilemmas, they're theoretical dilemmas, and people will say the thing that makes them feel good about themselves. I would never kill the child. Yeah, until your ass is on the fucking line, then we'll see about the child.
Yeah, exactly. Like the thing is, like,
If it's your child,
yeah, if
sure,
it's your child, or
I'll
if it's other people's child, like that is the question,
yes.
right? Because if it's your child and you're hiding in the basement and there's zombies outside and the child is crying, right? Like obviously you're not going to allow other people to smother it, but if it's like another person's child and there's zombies outside, and if they hear noise, they come in, like, yeah, then the dilemma gets more interesting.
Now that child is endangering the group.
Yeah, now the child is endangering the group.
No, I like the idea that the show is trying to present that moral dilemma. And hey, frying a child on primetime TV is still a pretty ballsy move. But, like, they really could have taken this all a lot further. Like, there are ways to make these moral dilemmas more interesting and more pointed,
How would you
shall
have
we
made
say?
it more interesting? You know how I would have made it more interesting? Allow the Star Trek ship, like Enterprise or whatever the fuck it's called now, right? Like allow the ship to beam the child on board and save the child, and then see the suffering and the damage they caused to that civilization. Like they return to the civilization which fell into the volcano, and everyone is suffering, and there's children dying, and like there's disease on the planet, and everyone is miserable, right? And then they see the consequence of their action.
The thing is, what the show should have done, because they introduced a second planet, which is the breakaway planet. The people who were like, we can't kill children, and ran away from the planet. Okay, fair enough. Introduce that planet, and they should have actually shown it. And because it was a much poorer planet. It was a shit planet. It was a very low-grade planet. And just show those people, okay, here there are people, there are children, they are starving, they're sick, they're diseased, they don't have enough medicine, they don't have enough food, they don't have enough clothes, they're living in fucking hovels. And then ask the question, is it right to expose these children to all of these deprivations because of your fucking moral fifis?
I think yes,
like,
because in the end, the idea is that the lesser planet could evolve to a point where they're similar to the first planet, but they don't have to sacrifice children. Like the Federation, for example, right? Like the Federation doesn't sacrifice children, and they're also very evolved. So you could make
that is a potential.
Yeah. So you could make it. It's kind of the same like how Europe used to be in the past. You know, like Europe back in the revolution industry period, there were gangs of children that literally had no place to go, and they were just on the street, like street rats, and they would pickpocket in order to survive. In London, especially. So the thing is, like, you have to go through harshness to progress, and you can become a civilization that doesn't necessarily need to do all that atrocious shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the moral argument would be like, yeah, still, like, the people not sacrificing children, like that other planet, like, that one might actually be moral, even though initially it looks apprehensible. But my point would be more interesting, right? Like, just save the child and then see the destruction that the initial civilization got through. And like, have a couple of people going through the destruction, like, why, Piker? Why did you do this to us? Like, why?
Why did you do this, Piker? The child sees it too, grows incredibly depressed because he's killed thousands of people. He's caused unbelievable suffering. Child kills himself. Piker sits there in his chair. Why?
That was the plot of The Last of Us, right? Like, so the first Last of Us was that little girl, Ellie. She had the capability of making a vaccine in her brain, but in order for them to make the vaccine, she would have to be killed. And it was the question, like, kill the child and have the vaccine to cure the zombie apocalypse, or just allow the zombie apocalypse to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, you know, like, the main character, Joel, like, chooses not to sacrifice Ellie, and you get The Last of Us 2, which...
But that problem position there too is also enhanced by the fact that you've built a relationship with this character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you travel through with her throughout the entire game. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that makes it your child. That makes it your character.
Yeah.
And
Well,
immediately a lot more difficult to get rid of.
this is the entire dilemma, right? Like it's when it's not your child, it's an easy dilemma. When it's your child, it's a hard dilemma.
Yes.
So
Human emotion.
there's one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about. There's a interesting game coming out, Dune, which initially I thought like a 4X strategy game. That's real time. Like that's going to be shit. But Dune actually delivered, didn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's weird. Still not entirely convinced how that's going to play multiplayer. I haven't tried it out yet, but it works. It's got a good bit of depth to it. It's an interesting video game. I don't mind it. It's pretty damn nice.
The multiplayer question is there, isn't it?
I do also hate fucking Black Doctor Woman again because it's like, yeah, we thought it was more modern. Like,
I don't
Did you
mind
know?
her that much, to be honest. I'm like, whatever. You know, like,
I really do. I mind all of this now because I view it all as the thin edge of the wedge right now. Even like there was a survival crafting game set in the Lord of the Rings they announced a while ago with beardless black dwarves, and it's like, okay, there's character customization, so it's not like it's a big deal, but I still don't like it because I was thinking about this.
it's
There was
immersion breaking, isn't it? Like you're playing it and you're like, well, they're doing this for a political reason, and not because of a story reason, right?
No, not even necessarily immersion. I was thinking about this when I was talking about Buzz Lightyear yesterday. I made a video on that because Buzz Lightyear was flopping and has flopped pretty hard. And I was thinking, okay, it was flopping because of two things. They removed Tim Allen for political reasons, which pissed off a lot of people, understandably so. And it flopped because of the lesbian kiss, which a lot of people reacted poorly to as well.
It got banned
And the
in
question
certain
is,
nations, yeah, like 15
Yeah.
nations, I believe.
yeah, but it flopped in America. Like, that's where it hit millions and millions and millions of dollars under estimates. And America is not a bigoted country. Like, for all of the lefty bullshit, America doesn't have a problem with lesbians or gays. It really genuinely does not.
I think it's
But here's the thing.
the marketing. It's like, oh, if you don't like this movie, you're a homophobe, so you need to give money
Yes.
to us. And if you don't give money to us, then you're the problem. I think
Yes,
I think
it was
it's this type
partly
of
that
marketing.
too.
Yeah.
But the even bigger reason is because people now know why that lesbian kid's in there. Like, just looking at the scene, it's just a lesbian couple. They've got a baby. It's just one of those Disney quick peck on the lips thing. If it was a straight couple, you'd never think of it twice about it. You'd never look twice. However, this is made by the company who employs people who say openly they have a gay agenda.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
show
Like-
this to your kids.
Yeah,
who
like
wave
up
the
on-
racial pride flag.
Absolutely. Like up until now, you could have made that argument. It's like, oh well, it's just a kiss. Why do you care about, right?
Yeah.
But when Disney comes out against the Florida lawmakers, and they're actively saying like, we got an agenda. We want to subvert our audience.
Yes.
Like that's
that is
when,
exactly
that's
why
when
it's a
that
problem.
argument doesn't work anymore.
Exactly, because Disney has told us that they are doing this for expressly political reasons. They have informed us that they
not
have an
even political.
agenda
Like,
when they're doing
the problem
this.
isn't that it's political. It's subverting, right? Like they want to subvert. They want to manipulate the viewer. That's
yeah,
what they said.
They have told us why they're doing it. They have told us that this is because they want to shove their sexuality in your children's faces explicitly. And at that moment, that otherwise wholesome picture of a lesbian family, quick peck on the lips, it takes on a whole range of subversive and sinister elements. Because now you know that this is done to show that sexuality to children. That is the express reason why this is on screen.
Like it's not naturally plot inducing, like the writers,
It wasn't written by a dude who just wrote a scene and thought like, yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense for this to be a lesbian couple. Or it's like grounded in lore or whatever. It was put in there because they have an agenda to push.
or at least it's very difficult to argue against it after recent events when Disney like literally goes after the Florida lawmakers, which are elected democratically by the Floridian state, and they're like, oh no, we as Disney, we're going to do our best to subvert your children. It's like, okay, well, if you do that, then well, people are not going to allow their children to watch your movies, I guess.
Yeah, like there's no argument anymore. Like Disney has again come out and said, yeah, we're doing this to subvert your children. We are targeting your children. Okay,
we're coming for your children.
Exactly. Like, if you tell me you're doing that, all right, fine, I'll take your fucking word for it. But don't then turn around and go like, hold on, why are you angry with me?
Roland says, thin edge of the wedge, or they slowly increase the bleach in the brainwashing solution, so all our brains will be colorless. It's not about, like, brainwashing or anything, but, like, when Disney actively says that this is what they're going to do and this is what they're planning to do, it's difficult to contradict them. Like, I can't defend Disney on this.
Yeah, no, it's very obvious. Like, when they have told you that they have an agenda, okay. Like, that's pretty much where the discussion stops. I know what they're doing, so...
I'm pretty sure the Muslim countries as well, this is why they banned them. Because, like, there were other Disney films that showed similar, things, and they didn't get banned, but, like, this one did. And I think, like, the Muslim nations, when, like, they had, like, their Islamic scholars or whatever, and they were like, well, Disney said this.
The reason why they banned it is they banned it for promoting the LGBTQ lifestyle, which is not a thing allowed down there. And the thing is, that is exactly what it is doing. Again, Disney has told you very specifically what the purpose of this kiss is. It is to promote this lifestyle.
Didn't they do that in Star Wars? Like, I think it was episode 11 or 10.
Yeah, the latest of the fucking Rey Skywalker bullshit trilogy where there's a lesbian.
That seemed to be fine. I mean, they did the kiss and nothing, like no countries banned it or anything.
Because it wasn't pushed in the marketing. Like, that wasn't lauded and presented as the big thing. It was just a thing that happened. Even then, you can tell that it was for a very specific reason, mind you, but...
That's another thing, like, whenever I see... Like a lot of people ask me, it's like, why don't I like wokenism? It's like, well, first of all, I like a lot of anime that has LGBT characters, and I have no problem with it. But, like, no anime pushes it in the marketing. Like, when your best foot forward is like, hey, we got a lesbian kiss in it. It shows me that, like, if that's your best foot forward, that everything else is shit. Like, your story must be shit. Your continuity and your understanding of the lore must be shit. Anime don't do that. Like, Attack on Titan, right? It's got lesbians in it. But it doesn't promote that. Like, the Attack on Titan promotes the story. Because that's their best foot forward, is the story. Or the visual effect, or whatever, what you see in the trailer. But with the Western audience, like, with this, is like, oh, look, we're so progressive, we got a lesbian kiss in it. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I've seen many lesbian kisses before on Pornhub. I don't need to watch your show for it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? It's like, okay, this is your big thing, is it? But I'm not necessarily interested in this.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell me about some other part of your movie instead.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, and I keep telling the people, like, there are certain woke things that may be good, but the way to filter them out is that when they advertise themselves, they don't advertise the wokeness. Like, for example, Black Panther. Okay, like, that's a commercial success. They didn't advertise the fact that the main character is black. Like, that wasn't the focus. It was the story. It was like the incorporation of him as being one of the Avengers. Like, that's what they advertised in the trailer, because they were confident that's going to sell. They edited out the lesbian kiss in other countries. I don't think they did. I think, like,
no, they did initially. Disney actually initially caved with their demands to censor it. And then their employees bitched at them and made them uncensor it again. Because suddenly, of course, they were like, Disney, you're not for censorship, are you? And Disney's like, no.
Can you imagine, though, like,
really?
You have a company, don't you, right? Like, imagine if I'm an employee, and I'm like, okay, well, I want to work at your company. And you're like, well, what are you going to do for me? And I'm going to make sure that you promote inclusion, diversity, and equity, and if you don't, I'm going to go on a strike. And like, you're going to ask me like, but what do you know about building drones? And I'm like, nothing. But like, hear me out, okay? I'm going to make your company more inclusive. Like, if you don't put a rainbow flag during July, I'm going to go on a strike. Isn't this like literally what their employees are doing?
They are, but they probably don't pitch that at the hiring meeting, shall we say. It's probably not there. Again, you mentioned best foot forward. Their best foot forward probably isn't, all right, so I'm going to boycott your company. Like, that's something, that's a surprise for later when you've hired them and they go like, so.
I heard from people, I don't know if this is possible, but like, put all of the environment, the EGS people, you know, environmental governance, what is it? ESG, environmental social governance. I put all these ESG people into one department and then shrink the department due to cost reductions or whatever.
Well, that was what the Japanese were alleged to have done, because there was some stuff. I don't remember the exact company, but there was one company that was sued because it didn't give enough opportunities to women employees. And what they'd done is, because the woman had constantly been bitching, like, yeah, promote me, promote me, promote me. And so the company had made a department for her. It's like, you're the chief of this department now. And it had like one person in it, some fucking intern.
Well, from what I know, like the Japanese are experts in this, because firing a person in Japan is incredibly difficult. Right? I'm like, the concept of getting fired. So like Japanese culture is like this. They have a period, like they actually have a name for it, where it's a period of the lifetime of any teenager, where they finished university or they finished high school and they're trying to get a job. And they have a name for this. It's one of the most stressful periods of a person. But then when they finally land the job, it's almost for life. Like, it's very difficult to get fired. However, certain corporations have a way to fire employees. And what they do is, like, they put them in a room where there's nothing to do.
Well, that's brilliant.
And that's really, like, they will do this to you until you quit. So they will have, like, an empty room with a table and a chair. And you have to sit there. And you have to sit there 24/7, like, for like, how much is your... period. So you're completely useless. Like, you don't feel like you're contributing. You're not allowed to like check your phone or do stuff or anything like that because you're on the work hour. And that's just like the Japanese have a way of mixing human psychology in order to get you to quit that doesn't exist in the West.
I was like, we don't necessarily have that large of a problem with it either. And the issue is, it's very difficult to fire people in Norway too. And you couldn't even do something like that because that would be a violation of your rights as a worker. Because you have to have gainful employment, and you have to. Like, we literally have legislation that says that people can't do certain jobs because they're too stressful. Like, you can't have people do a certain job because it's strain for them. For example, there's a factory nearby which it makes a bunch of various stuff. Some of it mildly classified, and they've got heavy shit that they've got to lift. And people were just lifting this shit, and they were like, "Well, you know, it needs to go from here to there. Pick it up, bitch." And then the employment board came in and said, hold on, you can't do that. It's too heavy. Like, they measured it literally, and it's like, this is X amount of kilograms. You need to do something else. And so they had to install these fucking vacuum things in the ceiling that with suction cups that could lift it, and they had to rework the entire factory to run like pressure air and vacuum and springs and shit throughout the entire roof so that
like
they could carry this shit.
To me.
And it cost ridiculous amounts.
Yeah, that sounds like communism. And a lot of people don't understand that the cost comes from the consumer's pockets.
Of course. Like, who else is going to fucking pay for this shit?
Yeah, exactly.
The company's going to pay for it. The company's going to earn this money.
This is like what really amuses me when the Americans go like, oh, well, we have a progressive tax, right? So the rich people are going to pay for it. And I'm like, okay, but the rich people is Walmart. And when Walmart pays for it, you pay for it, you fucking dumbass.
Like, rich people need to pay. We need a corporate tax. Yes. Yes, you need a corporate tax.
Dean Domino says, about Last of Us dilemma, there are notes in the doctor's base at the end of Ellie was not the first resistant immune person they tried to cut open. Think those notes got removed and were re-released. It doesn't even care. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, the moral dilemma would be like, let's say Ellie is legitimately the person that needs to be cut open to save humanity, right? That would actually strengthen the moral dilemma in the game, because Ellie is like an innocent kid that's a really nice person, and you don't want her to be caught up, because like most of the people you beat throughout the game are absolute assholes,
which is also probably by design, of course.
Yes. ESG is a U.S. law forgiving about loaning money to companies. It came into being under Obama, changed the shareholder value. Yeah, like, the thing is, like, when a bank loans money to a company, they have to assess a risk. And the way the risk is assessed is subjective. And this is when they came up with the ESG score. So E stands for environmental, like how much damage you do to the environment. S stands for social, like how many scandals you're involved in, like how many people try to cancel you. And G stands for governance, like how many women you have on your board, how many gay people, etc. Basically, it's like a score that measures how much your company is akin to the leftist agenda.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But anyway, right. Arch, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. It was a fun conversation. I hope you want to do the roleplay in autumn if you put your current one on hiatus.
I'll see.
The
how much are you going to pay me?
YouTubers. If you do it, I promise I'll give you some really nice ushi-kushi ladies to play with.
That doesn't sound like payment. I'm pretty sure you can't pay people with people.
Well, no, but like you can provide people with entertainment, so there's that.
This sounds like a very Romanian sales pitch. Like, what are you going to give me? Well, I'll give you the pleasure, the enjoyment of entertaining other people. Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be actually.
Can I eat that?
Wouldn't that be more like an Eastern German thing than a Romanian thing?
I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you this: like communists criminalized homosexuality in every place they went, except for East Germany, because like East Germany was so freaking progressive they couldn't do that there.
Well, even the communists get something right, I guess.
V, please ask Arch if he is a Norderling. Nordling. No, it's spelled with the weird AE.
AE.
Yeah, like Nordling. I don't know what that is. But it's a fellow Norwegian of yours. It paid me with Nokians, so I guess like Norwegian kroners.
That is indeed Norwegian kroners.
Yes. So I guess like are you a Nordic person? Like, do you live in the north of Norway?
No, I live in the southern part.
So the warmer part, basically.
Warmer is a subjective term, but yes.
I really like your architecture, like in video games, where you have like the Viking thing with the huts that you guys used to have, like that. That's really cool.
That's good.
You know what's interesting? Like if you think about it, raiding was actually a forward-thinking strategy of mankind. Like raiding was quite difficult to do, but it was also required for survival.
It was tremendously progressive. I agree.
It was very progressive, yeah. Like without raiding, you wouldn't be able to maintain your civilization.
Yes, and there's no particular reason why the English should have anything.
Why didn't the English raid, though? Like, I think if the English would have had harsh winters as well, they would have been incited to raid as well.
If the English hadn't had anything, they would have been incited to raid as well, yes. Like, the reason why the Vikings went raiding was because we didn't really have a whole lot of shit. Like, we live in rocky, stony, piece of shit areas. Like, the Vikings, when they came to England, they were like, holy shit, it's so warm and cozy.
And wealthy.
Yeah. And so we decided that it would only be fair if we had some of that.
Do you think they probably thought like they're worshipping a dead god as well?
Oh yes, there is from the little writing that does survive. Like we know exactly how the Vikings viewed Jesus. Like it was considered a joke. There was also one of the reasons why Vikings, by and large, didn't mind getting baptized because it's like, oh, you're gonna baptize me to what? The dead thing?
Yeah, because I always wondered that, right? So on one hand, you have like the Vikings, and they believe in warrior gods that are alive, like God Thor and Odin, and like incredibly powerful deities. And like if you die in battle, you go to Valhalla, and fighting is the good thing. And then they meet this other civilization. It's like, what are they praying to? A dead god that talks about turning the other cheek.
Like our god has been strung up on a stick, has he? Yes, many thousand of years ago. Uh-huh.
I am genuinely curious about the culture clash that would have happened when the Vikings heard about the religion of the English.
Probably thought they were pussies. Which,
Right.
to be fair.
Well, yeah, but like to be fair, the Vikings did adopt the Christian religion in the end. So
Yes, because it was tremendously beneficial. Like that's the thing. Christianity was just useful because you got to trade with all of the southern countries, and they were like, "Hey, we've got lots of shit, and we're kind of stupid."
would you consider adopting Christianity the same like corporations adopt wokeness nowadays?
Yes, in many cases.
Because like
Like because there was one story about a trader who had like a fucking chest full of religious icons. So he would just pick out whichever one he needed for the time. Like he'd be Christian, Muslim, Hebrew, Jew, whatever the fuck, depending on who he was trading with.
because the thing that baffles my mind, right, is imagine a time where well like you have Christians being thrown to the lions and shit, so like Christianity is actually being oppressed. But then you have a different time when almost everyone is on board with Christianity and the church controls almost every single aspect of of people's lives. And you have like this noble that you know for sure the motherfucker is a Christian. The motherfucker has a statue of Odin in his house, right? But he converts to Christianity. And if you call him out, if you say, no, you're full of shit, you're not a Christian, then you have like the Inquisition and the nobility and every other fake Christian descending upon you. Do you not think that these are the same times we're living in right now?
Well, it was the literal concept of like letters of oh, what was the term they used for it? You know those fancy little letters that the church sold to people for forgiveness of their sins.
Oh yeah, I know that now.
Yes, like that is such a retarded thing. Like, okay, so God knows everything, right? And God will forgive anything, any sin, so long as you repent, right? And the church is selling forgiveness. Like, it's actually kind of genius when you think about it.
Well, actually, what it did sell, see, like it wasn't selling forgiveness. It was selling a priest praying on your behalf.
Mm.
Yeah, like the priest, he's got like kind of like an in with Jesus, like he kind of
Inside connection.
yeah, like he's kind of like the inside guy, like and he's going to pray on your behalf. That's pretty much what it was. It wasn't like forgiving your sins, but it was like prayer for your forgiveness. Naruhodo. Anyway, right. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, and thank you, chat, for the donations. I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.